We do these meetings once a month on the second Saturday at 10 a.m. Zoom, 9:30, we have a meet and greet with whatever location that we're meeting at. The purpose of these meetings are threefold. One, we want to engage our heads. Two, we want to engage our hearts. Three, we want to engage our hands. And what does that mean? That means that we want to engage our heads by becoming aware of issues that are facing our community. We want to engage our hearts by identifying the nonprofits that are actually doing something about that issue. And third, we want to engage our hands because we want to have volunteer opportunities for us to see firsthand, to actually immerse ourselves in the solution to the issue that we're talking about. So today we're talking about modern slavery. I don't know about you, but if I was alive during, like say this was 1822, and I knew that people were enslaved and I didn't do anything about it, I didn't speak out about it, I don't know, but I feel like I would be ashamed. And so I said, you know what, we need to address this modern slavery today. We need to become aware of it. We need to find out who is doing something about it. And we need to get our hands dirty. We need to put some skin in the game in terms of solving this issue in our community, particularly in Hampton Roads. So I'm going to ask Monique if she will give us a little bit of information about what the Planning Council is actually doing in the community. Monique? You know what? Where's Monique? Okay, we'll come back to Monique. Off the bat, do any of you who are on the call or in the audience here, do you have any burning questions that you want to have the speakers address concerning human trafficking?
I guess for me, I would like to know where we are as far as legislation and laws in Virginia right now at this point, with being able to arrest people or even search if they're suspected of doing human trafficking. And then also, what types of programs are we doing for our youth to expose them to how susceptible they can be to being targeted for human trafficking? And then also too, beyond the youth, how susceptible are people at our age or even younger for that too? Okay, those are my questions.
Well, I'm 60, and you know, I ain't being trafficked. Well, okay,
they probably
maybe nobody would, you know, I don't know. Listen, let me tell you. Now, I just said that I am 60. Y'all supposed to say, really? Really? Okay, let's try this again. So I just turned 60. Oh my gosh, no way. I know, right?
Girl, you look good.
All right, okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, Eunice, those are excellent points for discussion, and I'm sure Naomi and Tanya can address that, all of those things. They're writing that information down. Are there any other questions or concerns or anything that anyone else wants to hear from our guest speakers?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have statistic numbers specifically for Norfolk, like the area?
Okay. So the question is coming from Sylvia, and she wants to know if we have statistics, particularly for the Hampton Roads area, Norfolk, So I don't know if we have those numbers, but if we don't have those today, we'll include that in the follow-up email. So for all of you, if you have questions that we're not able to pinpoint to get accurate information for you today, we will put that information in the email that will be coming out as a follow-up to this meeting. So everyone that's on this call, everyone that's here in the audience will receive that follow-up email that will include all of your information that you're putting in the chat about your business, about your nonprofit, the things that you're looking for. Even if you don't have a business or a nonprofit, say you're looking for a new career, you're looking for a job, you're looking for a board that you can be a member of. Put that in the chat too, so that we can help each other. This is the African American Leadership Society, and this is what we do. We come together to look at issues that are in the community, but we also come together to network with each other and to help each other. So please put your information in the chat so that we can help each other. Okay. Yes.
So one question I would have is, what?
Okay. We have a question coming from Matthew. Are you good? Okay. Okay. So I am going to, so that question was coming from Matthew from United Way Mission United, and he wants to know what departments and what contacts for different communities are available for human trafficking. Is that correct, Matthew?
Yeah, what agencies have assigned?
What agencies have assigned?
Fort Smith, Chesapeake,
Yeah.
Norfolk, do they have a particular officer or team that is assigned specifically to address these concerns?
Excellent. Okay.
Are we working on that?
Okay. All right, great. So I am going to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. She is a subject matter expert, and she is a local girl. I didn't know she went to Granby High School. I know, I did my research. She said she didn't tell me that. So Naomi Estaris, am I saying that right? Naomi Estaris is the founder and of the Gould. I have to put my glasses on so I can read this. She went to Granby High School, and I'm not going to say what year she graduated.
Thank you very much.
She said thank you. And she also went to ODU. So she is a local native here, and she created a not-for-profit organization called Gould. And that stands for Equality Now, Justice for Every Woman, Every Land, to end human trafficking through awareness, education, and prevention. She is very experienced in the community, sitting on several boards, Sister City Association of Virginia Beach. She co-chairs the Beach Events and Field Fest. And she is also a board member with Envision. And it is my pleasure to bring her today to make us aware of what this human trafficking is, and particularly in our neighborhoods. So I'm going to turn this mic over to Naomi. Thank you.
Good morning. I want to thank, first of all, the United Way of Southampton Roads, and then, of course, the African American Leadership Society for inviting me here, and the Planning Council. It's been a great opportunity to be able to share this in our own communities. And of course, with my good friend, Nancy Dabney, who doesn't look anywhere near 60. I would never have guessed that. Woohoo! But this morning, I know it's a very heavy subject matter. It's not one that we want to talk about in a cocktail party or to any event. We tend to talk about things that are much more comfortable. So it's very difficult to showcase or share the information. So it's outlets like this that allows us to get in front of groups of people, and especially women, and to know that women they're the breadwinners ultimately for a lot of the families. They're the ones that take care of the children. They're the educators of the families. So it's very important that we share this information. I want to start off with the fact that I started with this organization because I was with Operation Smile for 12 years. And in my time there, I went to a lot of third world countries. And in those places, in those spaces, we tend to see it to be normalized. I was in a situation where I actually was going to a hotel owner and said, there was a situation here. And they understood, and they said, would you like me to let them move to another table? And of course, that wasn't the response I wanted. I said, you need to address this. But because it's become normalized there in those countries, third world developing countries, or even third world countries, I wanted to make sure that that didn't get normalized here in the United States. And when I started in Gould, I was with a view that it was everywhere else, but not in our own backyard. It was not until a colleague of mine at Operation Smile said, Naomi, you were so hot about before we went around the world, we went around the corner. I asked you to do the same thing. And I said, what's happening here? Within a week's time, I was able to call my colleague and I said, Lisa, oh my gosh, you're so right. We got to do something here first. So when I started in Gould, my intentions were to help a country that I'm from, the Philippines. And I halted that process and said, you know what, let's do something here. So that's why Gould began and launched here in Virginia Beach. When people ask me what is specifically human trafficking, and that's a question that actually was asked of me when doing this piece. And human trafficking is what we say in the definition, it's an unlawful act of transporting or coercing, forcing people in order to benefit from their own work or their services, and specifically in the form of sexual exploitation or forced labor, or others have heard it, sex trafficking and labor trafficking. Folks have asked, how do you know who is that person? And one of the challenges in human trafficking is victim identification. When we talk about victim identification, less than 1% of the folks in the United States knows how to spot it. And I ask you, if you want to really know how to do that, how to spot human trafficking, that's part of the education. That's part of the problem. We don't know. And we always say, and you've probably heard, it's hidden in plain sight. And that's exactly what it is. It's hidden in plain sight. It is in front of you. And as a matter of fact, United Way Worldwide has a site, and United Way Worldwide actually has all this information about what are their statistics, how do you see it, how do you prevent it, and how do we report it. And if you take those factoids, there actually is an example in there where it talks about a child who was 6 years old, and she was being trafficked by her family. And she went to church, she went to school, she went to events. They talked about all the activities she was doing, and not any one person knew that she was being trafficked. It's right there in front of you. If only they had actually seen or actually knew how to spot trafficking was happening in the family, in church, or in school, that person would not, that 6-year-old girl would not have been trafficked. So it's, again, victim identification. How do you spot it? Growing up, I was taught stranger danger. I actually learned that through being in Brownies and Girl Scouts. Stranger danger, be cautious, be conscientious. In the space of human trafficking, it is not that. It is actually somebody you may very much well know. It is someone that you actually trust. The person that is most likely to be a victim is somebody that is very vulnerable. the vulnerability, the poverty. Somebody knows that you trust, which could be your parent, a family member, a coach, a teacher, a pastor, a priest, you name it, is somebody that you actually know and that you trust. Somebody actually knows your vulnerability, someone that knows that you're needing help, you're reaching out. It could be also be, you know, especially during COVID times, there are more people that are using devices. And through a device, and you're building a relationship with somebody, your gamer tag, and that person actually sees your vulnerability, gets to know you, gets to hear all the issues you have. You're building time of actually developing a bond, a trust with that person. That could be through a device. Like I said, it could be at church, something that you are unveiling some of the vulnerabilities. And that's when that bond is being built between two individuals, ultimately setting that child or person up. And I don't care what age, there is no, it goes to extremes. It could be a very young person. The average age today of a person being trafficked is 12 years old. So when we say is how young, how old, there is no gamut as to like, okay, this person's most likely to be trafficked. I look at vulnerability. You could be vulnerable at a 40 years old, 50 years old. There's a likelihood you could be trafficked or could be labor trafficked. So in the discussions of how somebody actually gets to be that victim, there's somebody that is showing that vulnerability. And that vulnerability will then lead you down this path, unfortunately. But there's other ways of actually addressing that issue before one person becomes vulnerable. And that's where we talk about the prevention. And Joel, there's so many areas or spaces that we get involved in the space of human trafficking. It starts off with search and rescues, to housing, to counseling, to therapies, and ultimately getting that person who's been rescued to go back into society. So once that person's been rescued, that job is just beginning for that person. That job is just beginning in a sense of how do I start my life all over? And I've spoken to several folks that that have been rescued, that are survivors, and how they get back into society. That's the element that we and Joel gets involved with. How do we actually collaborate and partner with organizations that do search and rescue? We do not do search and rescue, but I can help, or we've used our community to help transport a person before they can get to a safe house or to a shelter. We've helped with folks that are building homes. We don't build homes, but we help and support homes that are in existence. For example, someone says, you know, I want to help with a home. Well, last year we at NJOL, we actually, during even COVID, we've collected art supplies and art equipment that actually will help do art therapy in a home. So in most homes, we've helped out with art therapy, music therapy, equitherapy, and all kinds of different types of therapies. And we ask them, what are some of your needs? So we can help a home that way. And ultimately, education. Education's key. I think that if we can educate folks to understand the world of trafficking, we can also help prevent it. And that's a space that our organization gets more involved with. In the summertime, we have a SOS program, and that's called Summer of Safety. A Summer of Safety helps young folks and adults, parents, actually get involved. One of the programs we have is self-defense. And so that if you're in a situation, and that doesn't have to be trafficking, that could be domestic abuse, that could be just in a situation that you're feeling like if somebody's around you, how do you prevent yourself to be a victim? So we have self-defense. We have parents and children that actually come on the self-defense, and to know that they're doing something together as a family, how to get in the situation, how to know that if they were in a situation. We have internet safety, which also is again with adults and children that participate, and they learn more about how to protect their children how to put certain applications on their devices, which is very key. And then we also do gun safety as another element. I'd rather you be protected and also know what a gun is. If that's what your family wants to do, I prefer you and your children are aware of equipment, where it's placed, how to keep it safe. That's not for all families, of course, but that's my preference, and make sure that that's an opportunity that you are educating both you and your children of gun safety. And then the last thing is actually do financial literacy. I think a key piece that is actually a life skills training program is we do financial literacy. I think if adults and children are more prepared in that space, maybe they won't be such a vulnerable space. But that's what we call SOS. And this year, MacArthur Mall is actually hosting us for the summer. So as that comes about, we will showcase that on our Facebook page and on our website. So for those who are interested in those types of safety programs, that is one of the things you can get involved. One of the educational platforms that I really, and I've searched so many, and to make sure that they're user-friendly, easy to understand. The space is already a hard space to understand or to swallow. So how do we get more people to be more informed? And I found more trauma-informed or victim-led educational platforms are much more educational and much more to understand. And one of the ones that we really push at NJUL is I Am on Watch. And if you look at iamonwatch.org, it's a nice, I mean, I took it 3 hours because I was critiquing it as I was going through the process. Some folks have done it within an hour to 2 hours. If you have 1 to 2 hours to spare just to learn a little bit about the basics of how to spot it, how to report it, how to prevent it, that is a great platform, iamonwatch.org. And you know, what's great about them too is that that organization continues to keep it alive. They add more modules, should you want to spend more time to get more in a point where you even get certified. Even for the 1 hour, you leave with, you're certified with a basic training of human trafficking. So again, that will be one way of a platform, because I think some people have asked, what is an educational training program that's easy? And kids from middle school, elementary, to high school, to adults have used I Am on Watch. It is that user-friendly. So I'd recommend that. And I know our time is short, but I wanted to make sure that if I have 10 minutes, I want to share what we call a 10-10-10. It's a new thing. Like if you have 10 seconds, what can you do? I ask you after this, if you just research a little bit about human trafficking, if you could share on your social media page and say, I am on watch, are you? It's like a wake-up call and say, what is she on watch for? And you could say, I am an advocate to fight against human trafficking. If you could put that on your social media page, that show that you're actively looking, interested, and want to get educated, you yourself and your family. What a great opportunity. Use your social media pages for that purposes. That's in 10 seconds. Another thing to do in 10 seconds is know the different signals, hand signals. There's a big signal if you just look at, and TikTok actually saved several folks in this TikTok hand signal, but is also on Facebook. But it is actually your thumb, which is like you, that person, and to cover, like I need help. And then just to show if a child does this, that you know that person needs help. So if you could share that, just research it on, Google it, hand signal, knowing to help, actually post that on your Facebook page to say, hey, and make that an alert. Let people know and how to see somebody needs help. And the other thing is to know the phone number. The hotline for human trafficking is 1-888-373-7888. If you could post that phone number. So if you have only 10 seconds out of whatever you hear from today, if you could actually just do social media, say, I'm an advocate, I'm on watch, are you? Know the number, 1-888-373-7888, and know the hand signal. If you post just those 3 things on your Facebook page, I feel, oh my gosh, we're making a movement. And that's what we have to do, is educate folks and make a movement. Then if you have another 10, that's 10 seconds, and that's a little thing. If you have 10 minutes, I urge you to contact your local, state, and federal representatives to say you are very interested to hear more about what our community, what our state, what our federal government is doing in the fight against human trafficking. If you have 10 minutes, reach out, write a letter, or call them and say, hey, I am a citizen that wants to know more about what you are doing for me in our community in human trafficking. That's if you have 10 minutes. Now, if you have 10 hours, not a lot of time, but it is to save a child or save someone you love, volunteer for a local organization. We have several local organizations in this community to stand out and to help out those that need your help to volunteer. Take the training program, I Am on Watch. That's less than 2 hours. But if you have 10 hours, share that with another friend, or bring your church together, or bring your Girl Scouts together. Bring communities together that you know that you want to help them be educated and be protected. At the end of the day, we want to live, work, play in our community in a safe way. So how do you do that? Is to share that. I thought it was a great 2 hours of my time to share that with my child, to share that with your family, share that with your church members, to do I Am on Watch. And if you have 10 days, again, it's 10, 10, 10. If you have 10 days, actually host an event or attend an event. There's several organizations that are having events. We're having several events. As a matter of fact, as I shared, SOS is all summer long. They'll be at MacArthur Mall. Check out our Facebook and our website to hear more about how to self-defense, how to do internet safety, and how to do gun safety and financial literacy. That's all summer long. That could be just for not only for you, but for your family members, or come together as a group of ladies to hear more about it. Versona is one of our big advocates, and Versona is both at MacArthur Mall and at Lynn Haven. They donate clothes, shoes, accessories to a lot of our women that are in need. And whenever I need help with a bra, underwear, socks, shoes, whatever, they're always there. As a matter of fact, Versona on May 1st, it's a Sunday before Mother's Day, they're actually having a brunch and a fashion show. And in that event, they will actually have folks that will actually talk about human trafficking. The director of their security at MacArthur Mall will be actually speaking at that event and showing how they spot or prevent human trafficking and domestic abuse, how they see the signs. And it's great to hear from other folks that are in the space of security and safety and how they actually spot and actually prevent. Another event that we're having is June 27th, which will be at Apex, which is a bowl-a-thon. Nice and easy. If you like to bowl, great. If you don't, we have a sip and paint that's going to be at Apex that night also. Again, that's June 27th. But bring your teams out there. We're having folks from the Army, the Navy. As a matter of fact, we're having a lot of military folks at that one because they know that they also are in the vulnerable spots, especially when their husbands or wives are out to sea or out. Those who are left behind, to make sure that they know how to protect themselves. They also can get to a vulnerable spot as well. But again, that's June 27th at Apex at a bowl-a-thon. Look out for more details for that. And our final event for the summer is July 24th, where we have a 5K, and that's going to be at Mount Trashmore. And look out for details how you can volunteer and participate. If you jog in your neighborhood or your gym or run or walk, what a great thing to know that you're running and walking for a purpose to fight human trafficking. So that's my 10, 10, 10 in 10 minutes. Any questions?
We're going to take questions.
Okay, afterwards? Okay. Tanya.
Great information. I know I took a lot of notes, and we'll be passing that information on to you. 10, 10, 10. That gave me a lot of information about what I can do. So simple. Posting it on my Facebook, taking that I'm I'm on watch. I mean, that 2-hour class, just fantastic. Naomi, thank you. It's always a pleasure to work with you, to be in your presence. I want to give Monique a chance to talk a little bit about the Planning Council, which is our sponsor for today's event. Monique?
Good morning, everyone. I was experiencing technical difficulties, so my apologies for not being on in a timely manner, but I am excited to be a part of this particular topic today, and that the Planning Council is here and able to host this event. It's very important information that we need to have. I've learned so much in just this short period of time that Naomi has been speaking, and I'm over here writing, quickly trying to absorb it all. So thank you again, Naomi, for filling me in. And very quickly, with regard to the Planning Council, we are here in Norfolk. We've been in this community as an organization for almost 80 years now. And I think the best way to describe what we do is we are all about connections. So we work with the people who work with the people to get them assistance. We are behind the scenes. We're kind of like the stage hands, if you will, behind a big production, right? So we are working with the local community services boards, gathering data for them, helping them to analyze their information so that they position themselves in a better way to provide direct assistance to their customers and to the most vulnerable population out there. That is the big part of what the Planning Council does. We do that in the homeless arena, and we also do that in the arena of children's services. So we have some contracts that we work with the local entities on as far as child nutrition and health with the USDA food program. We also work with the Navy and Department of Defense with regard to some programs that assist military families. All of them being, vulnerable populations in one area or another. But what we pride ourselves on at the Planning Council is just being good partners and good neighbors with other local nonprofits and other organizations that are here to provide services and connect those in our communities to resources and services that they need. So we're excited again to partner with United Way for today. Thank you, Nancy, for this opportunity, and I appreciate you all being here.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Monique, and thank you. I had the pleasure of meeting the new CEO of the Planning Council, Ms. Short, and she's just a delight. I can't wait to have her come on one of these meetings and talk to us about her journey and all that she's doing as well. So thank you, Monique, for having us. All right, our next speaker is Tanya Gold. I'm probably saying her last name wrong. Gould. It's Gould. And I was so impressed with her courage to share her experience as a survivor of human trafficking. And I wanted her to kind of share her story and also share with us about what we're doing in the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Attorney General appointed her as the director of anti-trafficking, anti-human trafficking. And so she's going to share with us her story and what she's doing with the Commonwealth of Virginia. And then we'll get into answering any questions that you might have. So Tanya, is it Tanya or Tanya? It's Tanya, T-A-N-Y-A. Okay, here she is.
Well, thank you. You know how we do.
So as you know, we were talking about her shoes, girl.
Oh my goodness. So thank you to United Ways of Southampton Roads and to the Planning Council and to Naomi within Jewel. Her presentation was excellent. And I look forward to, to see us all just kind of work together in our community, right? And so, and you'll hear, I'll talk a lot about that because that's my heart, right? My heart is about how can we collaborate and support each other to do our very best. So as you heard, I'm a survivor of human trafficking. And for me, it was, just one of those moments where you meet someone and, you think it's love is at first sight and you have a really good time together. And, I didn't know anything about grooming or, I wasn't aware of just kind of this thing that's happening in our culture, right? Especially when it comes to the trafficking of Black and Brown communities. And, we see it, and what we called it was, pimping and hoeing, right? That's what we were accustomed to. That's what we were, that's what we normalized. And so that is what I was a part of. That wasn't my intent. I was, even though I was a single mom in high school, I decided to carry to term, and I had a lot of challenges. I was sexually abused by a family member from the time I was 7 to 14. I had child pornographic images that was passed around for family members. And so had a lot of, I grew up in a cult church community. And so in my vulnerabilities, as you heard Naomi speak earlier on, was really about adults not being adults in my life, adults not providing for me, what it could feel like to, have a structure, family structure, how to communicate, supervisory, protection, security. And so those are the things that were lacking. And so when I met my trafficker, AKA pimp, he provided a lot of the sense of belonging and validation. Matter of fact, when I sat and spoke with him before I knew what he was doing and told him that I was sexually abused by a family member, he said to me something that no one else ever said to me was, and that was, "I'm sorry that happened to you." So that's how manipulative and coercive traffickers are, because they understand our community, they understand our vulnerabilities, and they're able to speak into that area in order to get someone to do something for you, in order to exploit you. And so this is something that continues to still happen today. I was exiting my senior year of high school when this happened. And so I was trafficked for about 18 months. And I had an opportunity to come out of the lifestyle when a police officer had given me an opportunity. So for me, if it had not been for that law enforcement officer seeing me as a person and not a prostitute or a hoe, or, the things that we have said and made our own judgments about that situation, really knowing in our hearts that's not true, right? But we've normalized it. So he saw me as a person. He saw me as a sister. He was a man of color in uniform. He didn't try to mess with me, or he valued me and spoke to my heart. And I was in DC at the time, and I didn't have a way to get home. I was actually kidnapped by a buyer. And so he helped me get out and helped me get back home. And I don't know where he is today, but I'm so happy that he went beyond his call of duty and saw me as a person and saw me as valuable. And that's what I needed. So now I've done a ton of things. Actually, the planning, I was a part of the HIV planning councils years ago. I'm not going to date myself. So years ago, HIV and AIDS, I'm HIV positive as well. And so that was the first issue I saw in our community that wasn't being addressed. And people, there was so much shame built around it that there were a lot of women of color who were not getting services, and it frustrated me. Here I'm this young girl with these small little kids who needed services, and there was so much shame around being HIV positive. No one wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to break that, and so I did in my community and started doing work there with Planning Council. I was the youngest one on there, and ambitious and all of that. Moving forward, I've always been a part of community work and trying to make a difference in my community in ways that I could, and with my kids. But I got to serve on and I still serve on the Advisory Council for Human Trafficking that advises the White House on human trafficking policy programs, legislation. And so I've been doing that for a number of years. And I've been a policy champion for the National Survivor Network. Always working on how to move forward. Because for me, the reality is that 1 in 3 girls, 1 in 4 boys will be sexually abused by the time they are 18. That's the stats. That's actually what it says. We have not done our due diligence as community members to make sure that our kids are protected. And so I want to always, when we're talking about what we need as a community, as Black and Brown community, we need to get a tackle or get a handle on what's been happening generationally in our community, and for us to be responsible for that, take accountability for that. And we need to do something. So now I am a director of the of anti-human trafficking for the Attorney General's office. And the Attorney General, Jason Mieres, he wants to provide support to survivors and victims. So he wants to make sure that, we are closing a lot of these gaps. He wants to make sure that we are supporting all the resources, that they have what they need, that they feel supported in order to do their job, so that when, a lot of survivors or victims are going through court cases, they have the support that they need to actually go through with their testimony, right? Or try to find ways to not have to bring a victim in to testify. So our Attorney General's office is looking at more child exploitation issues, and also money laundering, following money that way. That way it just really builds their case. And so this is the first time that the Attorney General's office has a prosecutor that's specifically for human trafficking issues. So we have that. Also here in Hampton Roads, we are really blessed to have it's still working, and this is our Hampton Roads Human Trafficking Task Force. And so this task force has been in existence for, I think, about 4 or 5 years. We're working on our 5th year. And so that's now my role, to make sure this task force has its arms and legs, and really expanding the amount of victim services that are in the area. We are really blessed to have a ton of services. It really is just about coordinating the efforts, making sure we're all talking the same language, and working together to fill these gaps and to know where our gaps are. I heard, someone earlier was asking about data. So one thing you need to know, because we didn't have laws to support human trafficking work, we're super behind in that. And so the Homeland Security, federal government has done a lot of our cases. And so the goal is to have a partnership, right, between the federal, state, and local. So that's what we'll be doing now, is it'll be more of a partnership. That way we can have the correct data. So when we're going through from investigation to prosecution, we know more about what we're looking at in our state. So we don't have correct data, because right now the federal government has been doing a lot of the human trafficking work, when it comes to investigation and prosecution. So, so that's going to be changing. I'm super excited about that, because we need to know, those of us who are in the trenches, right, we know where it's happening, what it looks like, and what's going on. But as far as really capturing the numbers and having them all in the same place, we do not know that, and we do not have that. And so that is a problem. And so we'll be fixing that. And then someone asked earlier about police officers or law enforcement for each community. We do have that. Actually, the task force has task force officers that are through Homeland Security that are a part, that are designated are for each city. So Norfolk, Chesapeake, Virginia Beach, Hampton, Newport News, Yorktown, Poquoson, and Appomattox County, and yeah, I don't know if I said Yorktown, and so, and Suffolk. So there are task force officers assigned. So when there's a human trafficking call, so when that number that Naomi gave you, the 888-373-7888 number, that's the number to Polaris. Polaris is the National Human Trafficking Hotline. When they call, when someone from these areas call the hotline, they are going to call the task force. And that task force officer is the one that will respond to that call. So that is coordinated. Okay, so also I want you to know that we are working on, Newport News Denby High School is doing a pilot program it's called Traffic Stop. And they haven't started yet. They're supposed to start this coming week with their U.S. history program, where they're going to be talking about human trafficking in their class. It's a 12-week session that they're trying out with their SRO and the teacher. So we are working, the task force, when I say we, the task force is going to be working with the school counselors and the administration on, like, we want to make sure that teachers, all administrative staff are trained in human trafficking, because we want kids to be able to talk to whoever they want to talk to about what's going on, or if they wanted to disclose. It may not be the SRO officer that they want to disclose with the information you're hearing too. So we're just kind of working on that piece. So we're kind of working on the preventive side. What I'd like to see is as a director of anti-human trafficking, I would like to see a prevention specialist assigned to each area, so that here's this one person that understands the culture of the area they're working with and able to talk about prevention in that way, but who also is in alignment with the resources, so we can make sure we have this coordinated effort. So just like we have a TFO, I want to have a prevention specialist that's assigned to school districts. So we'll see how that goes. I'm still, I have a lot of ideas, but I would love to be as much as we can, because of the issues we have here in Hampton Roads. I want to be as coordinated as possible, so we can really get data and really understand what's going on. For me, when I talk, I'm 1 minute over, so no, sorry. No, go ahead. When I talk, I love, like, Naomi talked about the 10-10-10. And that is so important, right? Because we need, people, but for people who are like, how can I go deeper in things that are needed? I'm going to tell you, so the other thing that I've done for quite some time, I was a mentor for kids that were identified as being trafficked or at high risk, right? And I work with CHKD. We have kids that come in through the emergency room or social services, will have to come in for a forensic interview. And then they call us to come and do, a screening or whatever. And then they end up coming into our program over at CHKD. Now, I will tell you, the kids from Black and Brown communities. So I am so, I will say what it is, because I don't have time to do anything else. So when it comes to kids who are white, so we have, like kids who are white, and then we have kids who are non-white, right? And I serve all of them, right? We give them what they need and help get them through the process. My observation is that kids who are white have more support, whether it be a grandma, auntie, uncle, someone. They have more familial support to be able to walk through some of these processes, right? And so they pick up, oh, I see what I did. Oh, I see. Okay, I can now acknowledge that he tricked me and manipulated me to do what I'm doing. And okay, so, and they have the familial support, the family support to be able to help with that walkthrough. When it comes to kids of color, we do not have the kids that come through their family support. In fact, the family, is so challenging. It's hard for for our kids to go through a healing process but still be at home, because they're constantly triggered. And so they don't have this support systems that they need. And so when they've been posting ads and making money, and they're between 17, about to be 18, so many situations where they're receiving some type of disability check, their parents are, or their guardians are, caretakers are. And when they're 18, they're out and they're on their own because the check is no longer coming in. And I mean, this is like real. So the kid themselves, they've been posting ads, and they'll say, Miss Tanya, I'm making $600,000 to $800,000 or $800, a night or 3 times a week, and I don't want to work. I don't want to go, And so there's this gap, kids of color between 17 and like 21, where they really need this structural support. It's there. I've talked to so many organizations who try to provide like housing to foster kids or runaway kids between that. And they said to me, we have a problem because they would rather post ads, go to strip clubs. They'd rather do that because the money is fast. And so sex is demand, right? It's a demand. And so it's our kids who are affected in that. And so I would love to have talks about how decrim is coming up. Not okay for my people. It's not okay for people of color. I don't mind standing on a soapbox and saying that is not okay, because we will again be the underserved and marginalized community. So, to fix that, I know it's hard to have shelters for kids, but that's why there are not enough shelters for kids. So if we really want to do something as a Black community, we need shelters that meet our needs. We do. So if you have the capacity and someone and they're like, what can we do? That is what you can do. And that is a huge gap. You know how we talk about these little small gaps and, you're able to like provide clothing, shelter, and things like that. This is a gap, but it's big. And it's us. We are the ones who need to come together because we understand our issues and we're able to speak to it in a different way. And so that's a big need. I expect our community to do something about it. We can get support, but it's us who have to come together and do that. We need to promote social economic opportunities for our kids. They need good, healthy social networks, right? They need something to build themselves. But how are they going to build something themselves when they don't have support to build something themselves, right? So we provide those types of structures as a community, as a Black man. Now I'm telling you, as a person of color working with kids who are Black and brown, if we didn't get it at home, and most of us who are in this trafficking situation, and this is another thing I've observed for kids of color, right? You can basically tell they've come from this community, like you can kind of roll it out, right? Who are a part of a trafficking situation or who find themselves in a situation. When it comes to white kids who've been trafficked, it's all types. I mean, they come from different backgrounds, different cultures. They're rich, they're poor, it's just all over. And so that tells me, again, here we have our Black communities that are just kind of at the bottom in the trenches. So we want to do our best to reach them, but we're the ones who have to do it. Polaris Project, you can go, it's Polaris Project. They have stats on, because they have the National Human Trafficking Hotline. So you can go to their website and you can see what kind of calls that have come in from our state, and they'll break it down as to like regions and all of that. But it's not going to show you like cases that actually went for investigation and prosecution. It's just going to tell you the type of calls that have come in, which is still interesting to see. And also Shared Hope International is another place where you can get stats about our states and about our laws. And I think I'm going to stop there.